This is also a time of change for my family.
The request arrived at the worst possible moment, and the answer was even more shocking. Inside the royal household, a last-minute appeal landed directly before King Charles, carrying a proposal that could have altered the balance of the monarchy forever. Camilla wanted her son formally welcomed into the royal structure. Instead, a decision emerged that stunned even those closest to the crown. One conversation, one refusal, and suddenly, an entire family found itself standing on uncertain ground. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The monarch knew the paper in front of him was not just another private request. It carried emotion, history, and danger in equal measure. For years, the queen consort had walked through suspicion, criticism, silence, and slow acceptance, fighting to move from outsider to wife, and from wife to crowned partner beside the throne. That journey mattered because every public sign of belonging had once been denied to her, and now she wanted something deeper than sympathy. She wanted her son to have a formal place inside the royal structure, meaning the organized system of roles, duties, and recognition that separates private relatives from working members of the monarchy. Charles understood why she asked. The mother in her wanted security. The wife in her wanted trust. But the king in him saw a line that could not be crossed without changing the meaning of the crown itself. The request asked for a proposed honorary position, a symbolic royal role that would not make her son a prince, but would place him close enough to official life to raise questions across the family. That was the problem. If he said yes, the monarchy would look personal. If he said no, the woman beside him would feel wounded. The room tightened around that choice. Charles read the final page slowly, held the proposal for a moment longer than anyone expected, then placed it flat on the desk, as if the decision had physically grown too heavy to carry. His voice dropped. "No, this cannot happen." No one moved. A courtier near the doorway watched the queen consort's expression change from hope to shock, and in that brief silence, the refusal became more than an answer. It became a warning. The royal family had survived scandal by holding its boundaries, and now those boundaries had been drawn directly through the heart of a marriage. But this was never just about a single request. It was about the people whose futures, loyalties, and identities suddenly became entangled in the king's unexpected decision. When royal decisions become personal, the damage spreads far beyond the person who signs the document. Behind Charles's refusal stood a wife fighting for her family, a son hoping for recognition, and senior royals quietly watching the balance of power shift. What appeared to be a simple rejection carried emotional consequences that reached into private conversations, strained relationships, and old wounds that had never fully healed. Camilla sat without speaking after the answer reached her. The queen consort had survived years of judgment, years of whispers, and years of being treated as someone who belonged near the throne, but not fully inside its heart. That mattered, because this request was not only about status, it was about whether her children would forever remain outside the story she had fought so hard to enter. For the first time, the refusal felt like a wall built not around the monarchy, but around her own blood. Charles had always believed the crown needed boundaries. The royal household, meaning the official working structure that manages duties, titles, staff, and public roles, could not be shaped by private emotion without inviting dangerous questions. The king knew every added name carried meaning. One honorary role could look small on paper, but to the public and to the family, it could signal that personal loyalty now had the power to reshape royal identity. That was why he refused, and that was why the pain cut so deeply. Camilla read the decision once, then placed it beside her with careful restraint. An aide waited outside the room, hearing no raised voice, no argument, no order to return. That silence frightened the aide more than anger would have. The queen consort did not ask for comfort. She did not summon anyone. She simply stayed seated, staring at the paper that had turned hope into humiliation. Her son, who had believed recognition was finally close, received the news with stunned disappointment, and the wound moved from palace policy into family heartbreak. William learned of the refusal soon after, and the prince understood the scale of it immediately. He knew this was not just about Camilla's son. It was about the future shape of the monarchy, about who could stand close to the institution, and about whether emotional pressure could bend ancient lines. Other senior royals recognized the same danger. Their reactions remained controlled, but the message passed quietly from room to room. Charles had chosen the crown over comfort, and everyone would feel the consequences. The decision left Camilla wounded, Charles burdened, and William alert to something larger than a family disagreement. Because beneath the rejection lay an older tension, a buried moment no one had fully discussed, and a forgotten incident that suddenly made the king's refusal feel less sudden than it first appeared. To understand why the king refused so quickly, we have to return to the moment when trust first began to fracture behind closed palace doors. Every royal crisis has a beginning, and this one started long before the request reached Charles's desk. Hidden beneath formal smiles was a moment that palace insiders never truly forgot, a single conversation that transformed a family discussion into a future battle. What happened that day seemed small at first, yet months later, it would become the reason many believed the king's answer had already been decided before the request was even made. Camilla had grown tired of waiting for acceptance to reach beyond herself. She had earned a place beside the throne, but her relatives remained outside the formal circle, welcomed privately, yet denied public standing. That mattered because royal events were controlled displays of continuity, and every person given an official duty appeared to carry the crown's approval. A ceremonial role, an honorary place in a royal occasion without constitutional power, could change how the public understood belonging. Charles felt the danger immediately for everyone around him. The king knew that recognition created precedent, and precedent could become expectation. He had spent years defending the monarchy from accusations that privilege followed private ties rather than service. Camilla saw caution. He saw a threat to credibility. The more she pressed for opportunities for her son, the more the monarch feared affection would be mistaken for favoritism. The breaking point came during a private planning meeting before a major royal ceremony. Camilla leaned forward and proposed that her son receive a future ceremonial role, calling it a gesture of unity. Senior family members exchanged guarded looks. William chose his words, warning that any official position would blur the line between the sovereign's working family and private relatives. The prince repeated that concern when Charles asked whether the objection was personal, insisting it was about protecting the institution. Charles watched the room harden around his wife. Camilla heard resistance in every pause, and her frustration sharpened when she asked why. Years of loyalty still seemed unable to earn her family one visible place. The king did not defend the proposal. Instead, he closed the folder, pushed back his chair, and ended the meeting before the argument became irreversible. She left feeling exposed. He remained behind, uneasy that the request had divided the people whose cooperation he needed most. No one resolved the dispute. A documented account later preserved the exchange in a confidential meeting note, confirming that the same proposal had unsettled the family months earlier. From that day, trust weakened beneath every polite conversation, waiting for the request to return in a more dangerous form. Months later, the same disagreement returned, only this time there would be no quiet, compromise, and no graceful exit. There are moments when even royal protocol cannot soften a difficult conversation. This was one of them. Behind a closed door, away from advisors and cameras, two people who had spent years fighting to protect their relationship suddenly found themselves standing on opposite sides of a decision neither could ignore. What followed was not a public argument. It was something far more painful, a collision between love and duty. Camilla entered the room, believing there was still time. The queen consort had watched her request move through every stage of palace review, gathering objections, warnings, and careful legal language until only one voice could decide its fate. That final review meant the proposal had reached the monarch personally, leaving no committee or advisor between her hope and his answer. Charles understood the weight immediately. Whatever the king chose would not remain a private favor. It would tell the family whether personal loyalty could shape official status, and it would tell the nation whether the crown still knew where privilege must end. The silence between them felt heavier than the document on the table. She reminded him of the years they had survived together, the judgment, the distance, the sacrifices, and the long fight to be accepted. Her son, she argued, was not asking for a title or power. He was asking for a place, a ceremonial position, meaning a symbolic role at royal events without governing authority, seemed modest to her. To the monarch, however, even a symbolic role carried the public approval of the crown. Camilla leaned forward and asked the question she had been holding back. Why not now? She spoke of loyalty. She spoke of family. She spoke of how painful it was to stand beside the throne while knowing her own children would always be treated as visitors. The queen consort watched his face carefully, hoping affection might finally overcome caution. Charles struggled to answer. The king could see the pain she was trying to control, and that made the refusal more difficult, not less. Yet he also remembered the earlier meeting, the resistance from senior royals, and the danger of turning the monarchy into something shaped by private family demands. He lowered his voice and told her the institution could not become a family extension project. The words landed harder than either expected. Camilla stopped moving. She did not argue. The monarch looked away for a moment, knowing he had defended the crown while wounding the woman beside him. The room fell completely silent, and in that silence, love did not disappear, but power revealed its limits. The conversation ended without comfort, agreement, or apology. She left, carrying humiliation. He remained behind, carrying guilt. Yet the refusal had exposed something even larger than their marriage, because the struggle was no longer about one son or one role. It was about influence, authority, and who had the right to shape the monarchy's future. Because behind the refusal stood a larger question. Who truly holds power when personal wishes collide with the survival of the crown? Royal decisions rarely happen in isolation. Every signature sits on top of decades of precedent, pressure, and invisible calculations. As the shock of the refusal spread, attention shifted from Camilla's request to the forces surrounding Charles. Why had he chosen this moment to draw a line? The answer lay not in emotion alone, but in a deeper struggle over what kind of monarchy he wanted to leave behind. Charles remained alone after the confrontation, but the silence offered no relief. The king knew his duty was larger than one marriage, one request, or one wounded reaction. Institutional credibility, the public belief that the monarchy acts by clear rules rather than private favor, could be damaged by a single exception. That mattered because the crown depended on trust, and trust had already been weakened by years of royal disputes over money, access, titles, and special treatment. Every controversy had taught the same lesson. What looked like a family favor behind palace doors could become a national scandal once exposed. The monarch opened a folder containing constitutional notes and read each warning slowly. These notes were written guidance explaining how royal decisions might affect precedent, public confidence, and the future conduct of the institution. One line carried particular weight. Personal relatives who held no official duty could not be allowed to gain royal standing simply through closeness to the sovereign. Charles paused there. Then he closed the folder without speaking, knowing the principle was clear, even if the emotional cost was not. Camilla felt that cost more sharply with every passing hour. The queen consort had expected resistance, but she had not expected her support to disappear so quickly. Courtiers avoided discussing the proposal. Senior relatives kept their distance. Even those who sympathized with her pain refused to defend the request itself. She had fought for years to belong beside the throne, yet now she felt alone within the very institution she had struggled to enter. Charles questioned himself in private. Had the king protected the crown, or had he simply wounded the person closest to him when she needed reassurance? He remembered her silence after his refusal, and that silence followed him more closely than any official warning. Still, the monarch understood that reversing the decision would make the damage worse. It would suggest that emotional pressure could alter royal boundaries. The refusal, therefore, became more than a private rejection. It became a symbolic statement that royal status could not expand through marriage, affection, or personal influence. The crown would recognize service, not proximity. Camilla heard that message as exclusion. Charles carried it as responsibility. Both understood that the decision was final, yet neither was prepared for what finality would do to the family once the morning arrived. And when the palace doors opened the next morning, the human cost of the king's decision became impossible to ignore. The hardest part of any royal decision comes after the headlines. Once the documents are filed away and the conversations end, people are left alone with the consequences. For Camilla and her family, the refusal was no longer a political matter, it was deeply personal. Every silence felt louder, every glance carried meaning, and every unanswered question seemed to widen the distance between those involved. Camilla felt the change before anyone spoke to her directly. Palace staff lowered their voices when she passed. Private meetings ended more quickly, and messages that once arrived through familiar hands now came through formal channels. The queen consort understood what that meant. The disagreement had escaped the room. It was moving through royal circles, turning private disappointment into public consequence. That mattered, because once a palace decision entered official communication, it became harder to soften, reverse, or explain away. The confirmation spread through the royal household that morning. Official channels, the approved system used to share palace decisions with staff, advisors, and public representatives, carried a simple message: the proposed position would not proceed. Camilla read those words and felt something inside her harden. She had not only lost the request, she had lost the chance to protect her son from feeling permanently outside the family she had joined. Her son received the document later that day. He read the first page carefully, then moved faster through the final lines as hope disappeared. The words were polite, but the meaning was brutal. There would be no honorary role, no formal recognition, and no later review. He lowered the paper, stared ahead for several seconds, then left the room without speaking. His silence carried more pain than anger. He had believed the opportunity was close enough to touch, and now he understood it had never truly been his. Camilla learned of his reaction through a private call from a family aide. The queen consort listened without interrupting, then ended the conversation with a voice far calmer than she felt. Wounded pride mixed with guilt. She had raised the possibility, encouraged the hope, and now watched him carry the rejection. For the first time, she wondered whether fighting for his place had made his exclusion feel even sharper. Charles received a written briefing describing the family's response. The king paused over the account of her son leaving in silence, and the monarch's face tightened as he read how deeply the decision had landed. He had protected the institution, but the victory felt empty. Duty had given him certainty. Love gave him doubt. The palace grew quieter as the day continued, and the emotional distance between them seemed impossible to cross. Then, at the lowest point, Camilla received an unexpected message asking her to meet privately. What happened next did not take place in a council room or royal office. It happened in a quiet conversation where titles suddenly mattered less than truth. Sometimes the most important moments happen when nobody is watching. No advisors, no palace schedules, no official statements. After days of tension, two people finally confronted the pain beneath the conflict. What emerged was not another argument, but an honest conversation that forced both sides to see the situation differently. It became the turning point that transformed a bitter rejection into something far more meaningful. Camilla arrived without notes, prepared arguments, or anyone to speak for her. The queen consort had spent several days replaying the refusal, first with anger, then sadness, and finally a quiet fear that the distance between them might become permanent. Charles had withdrawn into duty during those same days, reading briefings and attending meetings while carrying the memory of her wounded silence. The king knew resentment could damage more than their marriage. If it spread through the household, every future decision would be judged through the bitterness of this moment. The closed door removed the last institutional barrier between them. No aides waited inside, and no official record would reduce their words to careful phrases. An institutional barrier meant the staff, procedures, and formal roles that normally stood between private emotion and royal action. Without those protections, They faced each other not as monarch and consort, but as husband and wife. They spoke quietly for more than an hour, allowing the pain they had controlled in public to surface at last. Camilla admitted what the request had truly represented. The queen consort feared her children would never belong, no matter how many years she served beside the throne, or how completely she gave herself to royal duty. She told him that the refusal had made every old judgment return at once. To her, it felt as though the family had accepted her crown, but rejected the life she carried before it. Charles listened without interrupting. The king then confessed that duty had forced him into a decision he never wanted to make. He had not refused because her son lacked worth, loyalty, or dignity. He had refused because royal recognition carried consequences that could outlive everyone in the room. The monarch reassured her that denying an official position was not the same as denying her children respect, affection, or a place within their private family. The words did not erase the hurt, but they changed its meaning. Camilla finally understood that the decision had drawn a line around the institution, not around her heart. Charles understood that defending the crown did not excuse him from acknowledging the pain his ways had caused. Neither asked the other to pretend the conflict had never happened. Their reconciliation remained quiet, fragile, and deeply human. The anger softened. The silence no longer felt like punishment. Yet while they found a private understanding, the story had already escaped beyond the palace. As reconciliation began behind palace walls, the public reaction exploded beyond anything either of them expected. The palace may have tried to contain the story, but once the news escaped, it became impossible to control. Across newspapers, television studios, and crowds gathered outside royal residences, one question dominated the conversation. Why had Charles refused? The answer meant different things to different people. To some, it was proof of discipline. To others, it was evidence of division. Either way, the reaction was immediate and unforgettable. Charles woke to a decision that no longer belonged only to him. The king had expected criticism, but even he had not predicted how quickly the refusal would take control of the national conversation. Broadcasters interrupted regular coverage, newspapers rushed special editions into print, and royal commentators argued over whether he had protected the monarchy or humiliated his wife. That mattered, because public confidence was the crown's greatest source of strength. The monarch could survive private tension, but once the country began questioning his judgment, a family dispute became a test of leadership. The front page made the conflict impossible to soften. One major newspaper printed the words, "The King's Line in the Sand," beside a solemn image of Charles, turning his refusal into a symbol of authority and division. Royal commentators, experts who interpret palace decisions and explain their wider meaning, debated the consequences for hours. Some praised the boundary he had drawn. Others warned that the decision exposed a marriage under strain and a court divided over who truly belonged. Camilla watched the coverage in silence. The queen consort heard presenters describe the outcome as her personal defeat, as though years of service had been reduced to one rejected request. She had accepted the king's explanation in private, but the public language reopened the wound. Every headline made her son's disappointment feel more visible. Every debate suggested that her place beside the throne remained tied to the question of whether her family would ever be fully accepted. Charles faced the criticism without changing his decision. The monarch believed he had acted correctly, yet the certainty offered little comfort as commentators accused him of coldness. He knew the refusal protected institutional boundaries, but he also knew the woman beside him was being judged for asking. The king had drawn the line. She was carrying much of the shame. Crowds gathered outside Buckingham Palace, the monarch's main official London residence, and openly argued over the decision. Some called it necessary, others called it cruel. One woman held up the newspaper front page, while another insisted that family loyalty should never outrank royal duty. That single exchange captured the entire national divide. The noise grew louder, but the palace could not answer with emotion. It needed a final message, one strong enough to explain what the refusal truly meant. In the end, however, the true significance of the refusal was never about headlines. It was about the legacy it left behind. Some royal moments fade into history. Others become defining statements about who holds power, what matters most, and where the future will lead. Charles's refusal belonged firmly in the second category. What began as a last-minute request evolved into a test of loyalty, identity, and responsibility. By the time the dust settled, the decision had revealed more about the monarchy than anyone expected, and it left a lasting mark on everyone involved. Charles understood that the controversy had changed the family, but it had not broken the crown. The king had protected the institutional boundaries that separated private affection from public authority. And those boundaries mattered because the monarchy could only command respect if its rules applied even when the decision became painful. The institution emerged bruised but clear about its identity. Royal roles would remain tied to duty and service, not marriage, closeness, or emotional pressure. That message was difficult, but it was unmistakable. Camilla accepted the outcome without pretending the disappointment had vanished. The queen consort knew her son would remain part of the private family, without receiving an unofficial place inside the royal structure. That distinction between personal belonging and formal royal service had caused the entire conflict, yet it now offered the only path toward peace. She could love her children, defend their dignity, and still recognize that the crown could not grant status simply to heal an emotional wound. Acceptance did not erase her sadness. It gave that sadness a boundary. Charles carried a different burden. The monarch knew he had acted from duty, but he also knew duty had wounded the woman who had stood beside him through years of public judgment. The king could not celebrate the outcome as a victory. Every time he remembered her silence after the refusal, he understood that protecting an institution often demanded a price, paid in private. He had preserved the monarchy's rules, but he would carry the emotional cost long after the public debate faded. Camilla joined him for one final private conversation after the household had settled. The queen consort did not reopen the argument, and he did not repeat the reasons they both already understood. They spoke calmly about family, responsibility, and the difference between being loved by the sovereign and being formally recognized by the crown. She admitted that she still wished the answer had been different. The monarch acknowledged that he wished the choice had never been placed before him. The truth finally stood between them, without anger. Family relationships and royal roles were not the same thing. One could be protected by affection. The other had to be earned through public duty. Their conversation ended not with triumph, but with understanding. The refusal strengthened the monarchy's identity while forcing the family to confront truths they had avoided for too long. It became a painful but necessary turning point, bringing clarity, closure, and a renewed understanding of where personal loyalty ends and royal responsibility begins. The story ends here, not with victory or defeat, but with a monarchy that chose its boundaries, a family that faced its reality, and a king whose refusal became one of the clearest statements of his reign. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.